Okay, this serves to be our review on linear equations to make sure we're good with all these concepts so that we can do some test corrections for our linear equations test, and so we can totally rock all the questions on the midterm about linear equations. The formulas you will need to know how to use are the slope formula. So write this down in your packet as I write it on here. So slope m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. That gives you the slope and y-intercept. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. Standard form doesn't give you any slope or y-intercept or anything. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And this gives you the slope of the line and also a random point on that line. Topic 2 is all about slope. So find the slope of the following graphs. Remember, slope is also considered the rise over run. How much you go up and down versus how much I always go from left to right, so my run would be just to the right. So if I was to find the slope of a line, I'm looking for how much it goes up versus how much it goes over, and your answer will usually be in fraction form. Starting at the leftmost point, I have to go up 2 units to get on the same line as this point. Then I have to go over 1, 2, 3 units. Both of these movements are positive. This is a positive 2/3 slope. Number 2, if I was going to start at any point to get to any other point, you don't go up and down anything. You just go over. Because there is no steepness, this has a slope of 0. Number 3, starting at the leftmost point, we have to go down for this one. We have to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. That's a -5 rise. Then we have to go over 1. My slope would be -5 over 1 or just -5. When lines are vertical like this, their slope is so big that it's undefined. It's so steep that it's considered undefined. Right. Topic 3, using the slope formula given the ordered pairs. The slope formula we know is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Some of you are still having issues with this. Simple little things will make a whole problem incorrect, so please be careful. The slope formula says, here's your first x, here's your first y. Here's your second x, here's your second y. The formula says take y2, subtract y1, simplify that, divided by x2 minus x1. So we have here -5 minus -1, double negative, be careful, over -2 minus -4, double negative, be careful. -5 minus -1 is really -5 plus 1, which is -4. -2 minus -4 is really -2 plus 4, which is 2. Then simplify. -4 divided by 2 is a slope of -2. For number 2, 9 minus 1 over 8 minus 2. 9 minus 1 is 8. 8 minus 2 is 6. Always simplify your fractions. 8, 6, you can divide 8 by 2 and 6 by 2 and get 4/3 as your final answer. Number 3, -4 minus -4 over 1 minus 9. -4 minus -4, double negative, makes it positive. The numerator is 0, the denominator is -8. 0 divided by any number is just 0. The slope of this line is 0 because it's a flat line. Notice both of these points have the same y value. That means that no matter what, the y is -4, so it's a flat line. Also, thinking about number 4, you might be noticing they have the same x value. Imagine plotting these points. You would go to the left 7, up 8 for the first one, and the left 7, up 5 for the second one. They're on the same vertical line. The slope's going to be undefined. But to use the formula to show that, we would do 5 minus 8 over -7 minus -7. 5 minus 8 is -3. -7 minus -7 is really -7 plus 7, which is 0. You can't divide by 0. Therefore, this is undefined. Graphing equations by slope-intercept form is the next topic. When an equation's already in slope-intercept form, you start here. So you start at 1 on the y-axis. And then you use the slope, which in this case is -1, which if it's helpful for you, put a 1 under it so you can see the two movements. You use the slope to get to a next point. A -1 slope is down 1 and over 1. So from our starting point at +1, we go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1 to make our line. Number 2, the equation is not in slope-intercept form right now. And in this topic, they want us to graph by slope-intercept form. That requires us to take these equations and solve them for y. You first would do that by subtracting 2x from both sides. You get -5y equals -2x plus 20. We don't take 2x and add it to both sides. That wouldn't make sense. If we added 2x to both sides, then over here, 2x plus 2x is 4x. We subtract it so that we can cancel this out. Some of you are having difficulties with that. This ends up being -5y because there was a negative symbol right here in front of that 5y. That means it's a -5y left over. To get rid of that -5, we divide everything by -5. Some of you are forgetting to do that. You have to divide every single thing in an equation by that number you're choosing to divide by. Then you simplify. -2 divided by -5 is 2/5. 20 divided by -5 is -4. So here's our equation. Our equation starts at -4 on the y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. We make a point. It has a positive 2/5 slope. So from the -4, we go up 2 and over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We make a point. We connect those 2 points, and that is our line. Number 3 is in standard form right now. We have to take this and convert it to slope-intercept form. Do that by moving the x over first. You get 3y equals -x plus 0, or just -x. Then get rid of the 3 by dividing by 3 and simplify. This is like a -1x. So -1x divided by 3 is the same thing as -1/3 x. This line starts at 0, 0. That's the origin because it doesn't have a clear y-intercept. It's 0. And you would go down 1 and over 3 to get to your next point. Topic 5. Graphing instead of slope-intercept form, graphing by x and y-intercepts. To graph equations by x and y-intercepts, you have to find the x and y-intercepts first. When you have an equation, if you're looking to find the x-intercept, you're looking to see where that line is on the x-axis. Every single point that is on the x-axis has something in common. All of these points have 0 as their y-coordinate. This point here is 1, 0. This point here is 6, 0. This point here is -2, 0. All of them have 0 in for y. When you're finding the x-intercept, what you do is you replace a 0 in for y, and then you solve it for x. So, in our equation, x plus y equals 4. I replace a 0 in for y, and then I solve it for x. Now this one's silly because it's just x plus 0 equals 4, x equals 4. That's it. That's our x-intercept. That means that this line crosses the x-axis at 4, 0. So we make a point on the x-axis at 4, 0. The y-intercept. Every point that's on the y-axis also shares something in common. All of these points on the y-axis have the same coordinate in for x. This point here is 0, 1. This point here is 0, -3. This point here is 0, 5. They all have 0 in for x. When you're trying to find the y-intercept, you replace a 0 in for x, and then you solve for y. We take this equation, we put a 0 in for x, and again, it's kind of silly for this one because there's really not a lot of work to do. 0 plus y equals 4. This has the same y-intercept as its x-intercept, which doesn't happen often, but in this case, the y-intercept is also 4. To graph by finding x and y-intercepts, you just graph those two intercepts, and then you put your line through them. Number 2, finding the x-intercept. We take the equation, 2x minus y equals 2. We replace a 0 in for y, and then we solve it for x. 2x minus 0 equals 2 is just 2x equals 2. This one we have to divide by 2 to solve, and we get x equals 1. That means that the x-intercept is at 1, 0. We can plot it on the graph. The y-intercept. We take 0 and we replace it in for x. 2 times 0 is just nothing. You get negative y equals 2. To solve that, you would divide by negative 1, and you get y equals negative 2. That means that this has a y-intercept of 0, negative 2. You plot the 2 points, you connect your line, and you graph by intercepts. Last one, 9x plus 12y equals negative 36. The x-intercept, you take y and you replace a 0 in for it, and then you solve for x. 12 times 0 is nothing. You solve the equation 9x equals negative 36. You divide by 9 and you get x equals negative 4. You go over to negative 4 on the x-axis, you make a point, and you're halfway done. The y-intercept. You take the equation 9x plus 12y equals negative 36, and you replace a 0 in for x because you're trying to find y. And when you're on the y-axis, 0 is your x-coordinate. 9 times 0 is nothing, so you're left with 12y equals negative 36. You divide by 12, and you get y equals negative 3. This has a y-intercept of negative 3. Plot it, connect the points, and then you're done. Vertical and horizontal lines come next. Anytime an equation starts with x equals, it's vertical. You go over to negative 1 on x, make your point. But don't forget, this is an equation, meaning you have to have a line. So you don't just leave your answer like that. This means that no matter what, x always equals negative 1, and here's the line that represents that. Y equals 4. That's horizontal. It's got 0 slope, meaning the number 0. You go over to y equals 4, plot it, make your flat horizontal line, and there it is. The slope of the line in number 1 is undefined. The slope in line for number 2 is 0. Moving right along. Topic 7, writing linear equations given point and slope. We're going to do a couple extra things here with this one because I want to make sure that we understand how to create equations in all 3 forms. If a point is given and the slope is given, point-slope form is the way to go. But what we're going to do is create the equation in point-slope, and then we're going to convert it to slope-intercept, and then we're going to convert it to standard. That's going to be our directions for this one. So, point-slope form. We already have the formula in the previous page. It's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This equation would be y plus 5 equals negative 4 times x minus 3. That would be the answer to number 1. That's the equation in point-slope form. If I wanted to convert this to slope-intercept form, I solve it for y. First thing I would do to do that is distribute that negative 4 to the x, the negative 4 to the negative 3 to get rid of those parentheses. Then I move this plus 5 to the other side by subtracting 5, and I get y equals negative 4x plus 7. That is our equation in slope-intercept form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. In general, to create an equation in standard form, you have to create it either in point slope or slope-intercept form first, and then convert it to standard. Basically, move things around. The way that the equation says it needs to be in, your x term first, then your y term, then the equal sign, then a constant number. Looking at what we have here in number 2, y equals negative 4x plus 7, all I have to do is move this 4x to the negative 4x to the other side by adding it, and I have my equation in standard form. 4x plus y equals 7 would be the equation in standard form. Number 2, let's create this equation in point-slope form first. It would be y minus 1 equals the slope of 1/2 times x plus 6. Let's convert this to slope-intercept form. First, distribute. The y minus 1 stays where it's at, but we do 1/2 times x and 1/2 times 6. Then we move that 1 to the other side by adding it, and we would get y equals 1/2 x plus 4. That would be your equation in slope-intercept form. Standard form comes next. To put an equation in standard form, you have to move the x term to the other side, and you get negative 1/2 x plus y equals 4. Only thing about standard form is technically none of these terms can be fractions. So I know for that test question some of you got -1 point, and that's because your answer had a fraction in it. To cancel out the fractions, you multiply the entire equation by a number that will cancel the fraction out for you. The easiest way to find a number that cancels out the fraction is look at its denominator. The denominator is 2. To cancel this out, I can multiply every single term by 2, and the fraction will wipe out. 2 times negative 1/2 x equals negative 1x. 2 times y is 2y. Equal sign. 2 times 4 is 8. This could be an equation in standard form. It does not have any fractions. It's in the correct format. Your x term is first, your y term, your equal sign, your number. You did not have to multiply by 2 at this point. You can multiply by 4, by 6, by 8, literally any even number. Because the denominator is 2, any multiple of 2 would work. Topic 8, writing linear equations given 2 points. Depending on the question, sometimes they want the equation in slope-intercept form, sometimes they want it in point-slope form. We're going to do both. For number 1, to find the equation, first thing we have to do is find the slope. 6 minus 1 over negative 2 minus 3 would be our starting point. We get it here 5 over negative 5. That equals negative 1. That means our slope is negative 1. If the equation said create the equation in point-slope form, we could be done. If we use this first point, let's say, our equation would be y minus 1 equals negative 1 times x minus 3. That equation is in point-slope form, and it has a slope of negative 1 because that's what the slope is of this line that connects those 2 points. You could potentially be done. If the equation said that if the question wanted you to have it in slope-intercept form, you could either create it in point-slope form like we did, then solve it for y to be like this, then add 1, and get y equals negative 1x plus 4 as your equation in slope-intercept form. Or, after you found the slope, you could create your equation for what you have so far. Pick a point, could use the same one, 3, 1. Replace 3 in for x and 1 in for y. Solve it out. You get 4 is equal to b, which means your equation altogether has a slope of negative 1 and a y-intercept of 4. Same thing we got here, we got here. Different methods to do it. Number 2, first we find the slope. 1 minus 3 over 5 minus 0. That's negative 2 over 5. If we wanted to create our equation in point-slope form, you could choose any point. I'm going to choose the second point since I chose the first point previously. The equation would be y minus 1 equals negative 2/5 times x minus 5. If you needed to create an equation in slope-intercept form, guess what? One of the points they give you is the y-intercept. So you could create your equation from right now, the start, once you found the slope, to be y equals negative 2/5 x plus 3 because the y-intercept is 3. You could also take your equation that you made in point slope form and solve it for y. Y minus 1 equals negative 2/5 x. And this will be plus 2. You then add 1 to both sides, and you're going to get the same thing. Y equals negative 2/5 x plus 3. Topic 9, parallel and perpendicular lines. So given an example of a line that's parallel to this, well, this line has a slope of 3. So literally any equation that also has a slope of 3, but it has to have a different y-intercept of that. Like here's an example, but there's many different answers. A line that's perpendicular to this means it's going to have an opposite reciprocal slope. This is a positive 2. The opposite of positive is negative. Flip 2 upside down and it's 1/2. So altogether the slope that's perpendicular to 2 is negative 1/2. So to give an example of a line that's perpendicular, y equals negative 1/2 x plus any number's fine. Even still 5, even though this is 5, that's fine. They can have the same starting point, doesn't matter. Writing equations that are parallel to y equals 2x minus 1, but passes through the point negative 3, 1. Parallel has the same slope. I can see the slope. It's 2. I can create my equation in point slope form right now. Y minus 1 equals 2 times x plus 3. But wait, what if they want it in slope intercept form? That's fine. You can start it with point slope form, then just solve it for y. Y minus 1 equals 2x plus 6. Add the 1, and you get y equals 2x plus 7 as your answer in slope-intercept form. Number 4, write in an equation that's perpendicular to that line. Well, great. The line that they give us is not in a form that we can see the slope, so we have to solve for y first. First thing you would do is subtract 4x from both sides, and you get 3y equals negative 4x plus 6. Then divide everything by 3. This equation in slope-intercept form is y equals negative 4/3 x plus 2. All we needed to do is see what the slope of that line is. All of those steps basically allowed us to see the slope. The perpendicular slope to negative 4/3, which is what the slope of this line is positive 3/4. This is the slope that we need to create our equation with. I'm going to put my final answer in point slope form for this one. Y plus 5, because this is the point it has to pass through, y plus 5 equals 3/4 times x plus 8 would be our final answer for this, and we could call it that it's done right now. If it wanted you to put it in slope-intercept form, you know the deal. You would just solve it for y.